Jake Turner had spent most of his life covered in grease, dust, and engine oil. Every morning before sunrise, he opened the rusted doors of his tiny repair shop on the edge of town, hoping enough customers would come in so he could pay rent for another month. The shop was old, the paint was peeling, and half the tools were second-hand, but Jake had something nobody else in the city had, a heart that refused to quit. People laughed at him for charging poor customers less money. Some even called him stupid for fixing cars for free when families were desperate. But Jake always said, a person's worth isn't measured by the money in their wallet. One rainy afternoon, while thunder rolled across the city, a long black SUV suddenly stopped outside his garage. Jake wiped his hands with a dirty rag and stepped outside. A wealthy-looking woman in elegant clothes rushed out of the car, panic written across her face. In the back seat sat a teenage girl with leg braces, staring silently out the window. The woman looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in weeks. "Please," she said with trembling lips, "our driver said this is the nearest mechanic." Jake nodded and lifted the hood. The engine problem was serious, but while he worked, he noticed the girl watching him carefully. She looked sad, not because of the broken car, but because life itself had broken something inside her. Jake eventually fixed the SUV, but when he handed the woman the keys, she burst into tears. "I don't have my purse," she whispered. "I left it during the hospital rush." Jake smiled gently. "Then don't worry about it." The woman stared at him in disbelief. Rich people were used to fake kindness, not real compassion. Before leaving, the girl quietly asked Jake, "Do you ever fix things that aren't cars?" Jake laughed softly. "Sometimes." The woman introduced herself as Evelyn Harper, one of the wealthiest businesswomen in the state. Her daughter, Lily, had lost the ability to walk normally after a terrible accident 2 years earlier. Since then, dozens of doctors, therapists, and specialists had tried helping her, but nothing worked. Lily barely smiled anymore. Yet for some strange reason, during the short conversation with Jake, she smiled for the first time in months. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn kept returning to the garage for small excuses, oil changes, tire checks, anything. Jake slowly became friends with Lily. Unlike everyone else, he didn't treat her like she was broken. He joked with her, encouraged her, and listened to her dreams. One day Lily admitted quietly, "I miss running." Jake looked at the old motorcycles lined beside his garage and said, "Then maybe we start with standing stronger first." Jake had no medical degree, but he understood machines, balance, movement, and pressure better than most people understood life. After watching Lily struggle to walk, he spent nights sketching ideas on old napkins. Using spare metal parts, soft padding, and modified hydraulic supports, Jake secretly began building a custom support brace designed specifically for Lily's legs. People mocked him when they saw him working late nights. "You're a mechanic, not a scientist," they laughed. But Jake ignored them. Deep down, he believed miracles only happened when someone refused to stop trying. Weeks later, Jake finally invited Evelyn and Lily to the garage. The custom braces stood on a table covered with cloth. Evelyn looked confused. "Jake, what is this?" Jake took a nervous breath. "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything." He carefully helped Lily wear the upgraded braces. At first, she struggled to balance. Evelyn looked terrified. But Jake gently held Lily's hand. "One step," he whispered. Lily moved her foot forward. Then another. Suddenly her body steadied. Her eyes widened in shock. For the first time in 2 years, she was walking without collapsing. Tears instantly filled Evelyn's eyes. Lily kept walking slowly across the garage floor, laughing and crying at the same time. Evelyn covered her mouth as sobs escaped her chest. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God." Employees from nearby shops gathered outside, staring in disbelief as the billionaire's daughter walked farther and farther on her own. Lily finally turned toward Jake with tears streaming down her cheeks. "You gave me my life back." Jake shook his head emotionally. "No, you never gave up on yourself." The story spread across the city overnight. News reporters arrived at the tiny garage. People called Jake a genius. Wealthy investors offered him millions to sell his invention, but Jake refused to turn Lily's miracle into greed. Instead, he announced something that shocked everyone even more. Every child who needs these braces and can't afford them, he said during an interview, will get them for free. The entire city erupted with support. Donations poured in from around the world. Evelyn offered Jake a huge check, but he declined until she agreed to help him build a rehabilitation center for disabled children instead. Months later, the old garage transformed into a beautiful facility where children learned to walk, smile, and believe again. And every single morning, Jake still wore the same green mechanic uniform because he never forgot where he came from. One evening, Lily walked into the garage without assistance and hugged Jake tightly. "You know what's funny?" she smiled. "Everybody says you changed my life, but you changed theirs too." Jake looked around at the children laughing and families crying tears of joy. For the first time in years, he realized he was no longer poor. Not because of money, but because he had something far greater, purpose. And as the sun set behind the garage doors, Evelyn quietly wiped away another tear while watching her daughter walk freely into the future she thought was lost forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional and inspiring stories that remind us kindness can still change the world.